Everyone, this is Robin Thompson and welcome to week 2. This is my public administration theory then and now presentation. So we've been learning this far over the last 2 weeks from Shafritz in our Classics of Public Administration text and also this week from Waldo. And we've been focusing on various theorists from the 19th century. Some examples of them are Taylor and his idea of scientific management, where he focused on efficiency. We've also talked and read about Max Weber and his contribution to bureaucracy and his focus on hierarchy. We've also touched base on Mary Parker Follett and her holistic nature of community and advanced idea of reciprocal relationship understanding, the idea of the power with and not power over concept. And we've also talked about Henry Fayol and his 14 principles of management. First, we're going to talk about Max Weber. 1926, he took the following kind of after Wilson. He wanted to focus on bureaucracy. He was different from Taylor in the sense that he felt that people should also be held accountable. Not only should we work efficiently, but we also need to be accountable for our actions. So he was more into the idea of this formal hierarchy, this formal structure, that we needed to have rules and we needed to have, regulations, and people need to be managed by these written rules and regulations, not just by feelings. He was very clear about the division of labor and how there needed to be interpersonal relationships with employees. And these procedures that everybody would follow need to be written. They need to be written out. They need to be followed up on, because that's how people become accountable for their actions. If there's nothing written, then there's nothing to hold somebody accountable to. So my example for Weber this week, incorporating the bureaucracy and efficiency concept, our military. So our military here, we've got many different divisions of labor here. We've got the Army, we have the Navy, we've got the Air Force, we've got the Marine Corps, we've got the Coast Guard, we've got the Department of Defense, the National Guard, it goes on and on. These various branches of the military are extremely structured. There is a clear formal hierarchy. There are clear rules written in each of these branches of government. And there are relationships amongst the various divisions of labor with employees. And military men and women are held accountable for their actions, whether they're on or off the field. So as we've talked about him, Weber and his formal hierarchy, each division of the military has their own ranking system. The Navy and the Marine Corps and the Army, they all have their own hierarchy system. And you can tell by looking at a uniform on one of these men or women, and you can clearly tell, what their ranking or what their status is within the military. So it's very clear. Everybody knows exactly what they need to do and what it takes to get to the next level. There's written processes and there's written procedures, and everything's divided up amongst one another. So this was a great example, I felt, for bureaucracy and this sense of hierarchies and rules and regulation. Next, I want to talk about Mary Parker Follett. And she states that leadership is not defined by the exercise of power, but by the capacity to increase the sense of power among those led. The most essential work of the leader is to create more leaders. And orders come from the work, not work from the orders. So she had a different approach. She felt, it shouldn't just be that a manager should just manage and everybody else should just listen because they're in charge. They're in charge of me. They have more power. They have more control. So I just have to do what they say. So she took a more personal approach to it and came up with the idea of the reciprocal relationships. And she felt that, that you should have these relationships with your employees. Just because you're in charge doesn't mean that your employee doesn't have this great idea that might help everybody, make something more efficient, make something easier for people to understand, or make something work more smoothly. So she didn't want this power with, she wanted this power with, not power over. So this leadership wasn't so threatening. I'm in charge of you. You better do what I say. I'm in control of you. So this kind of comes from the transformational leadership aspect. So my example for this, in hospitals, in the medical field. So I'm going to focus here specifically on the Veterans Hospital. Nurses and doctors and surgeons, there's so many people that are involved when it comes to healthcare and taking care of somebody's health. And it isn't just so cut and dry where, well, I'm the doctor, I'm in charge, everybody do what I say. It takes a group effort. It takes a collaborative team to talk to each other and communicate with each other and, share their ideas and what they think about something, because caring for somebody and treating somebody doesn't fall on the responsibility of just one person in healthcare. So to me, this was more of an example of they have power with each other. They're only as good as the team of doctors that they have. Even when you go into surgery, it's not just the surgeon performing the surgery. It takes a team of people. So no one is completely in charge per se. Everybody has a specific role and everybody works together. It's a give and take scenario. So that was my example of her taking on the holistic nature of the community and this understanding of the individual relationship and responsibility towards each person. So next up, we have another theorist, Frederick Taylor, and he's most known for the scientific management, where things could be done much more efficiently. There has to be this way of anybody can do the job. It needs to be that someone could step out and another person could just come right in and pick right up where they left off. There does need to be, an order of how things are done. But he was mostly focused on efficiency. He didn't really focus too much on, accountability for the actions. But he said that people were disposable and that people are the ones that create efficiency. So there needs to be more structure in that regard. And this was during the time of the Industrial Revolution. So there were a lot of factories and there were a lot of studies being done. And he was trying to prove that, we can get more out of people if we just push them harder and so on. So my example of how I feel that Taylorism kind of goes into our public school section, and how there could be some improvements done, I feel, in our education, maybe especially in California. We always hear about these studies, how California's, our elementary and high school students are behind the rest of the nation in regards to our education. And of course, I myself could be a little bit more knowledgeable in that regard, but my philosophy is a lot of these teachers today, I'm going to focus on the tenured part. All these teachers, yes, they have skills and they have knowledge and they have abilities, but times change, things change, education changes, and how much are these teachers who've been teaching forever, are they held accountable for continuing to learn new material, or how much motivation do they have to keep their drive going? This little funny picture here on the right is, we'd get rid of her, but she has tenure. It's like once you're tenured, it's like this, you're untouchable. You can't lose your job unless you completely break, there's something in the code of ethics. But my example of Taylorism and how we could improve it would be in our public school. There has to be order. There has to be accountability as well as efficiency in our public schools, as this is the future of our nation. I hope that you guys enjoyed my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. It's been a pleasure working with everybody thus far, and I look forward to working with you next week. Have a good weekend.